What if everything you thought you knew about human history was incomplete? Imagine standing before an ancient structure so precisely engineered that modern tools struggle to replicate it, or holding an artifact so technologically advanced that it seems to belong in a future era rather than the distant past. Our planet is filled with these mysteries, silent enigmas, left behind by civilizations long gone, puzzles that continue to baffle the brightest minds of our time. These aren't just curiosities, they are profound challenges to our understanding of human achievement, scientific progress, and even the very timeline of our existence. From the depths of the ocean to remote mountain peaks, these ancient riddles whisper secrets that we are still striving to comprehend. In this journey, we will explore 23 of the most captivating and perplexing mysteries from antiquity, each one a testament to the ingenuity, ambition, and perhaps even the hidden knowledge of our ancestors. These are not mere legends or myths, they are physical artifacts, monumental constructions, and inexplicable phenomena that have endured for thousands of years, resisting clear explanation despite decades of research and analysis. They invite us to reconsider what ancient peoples were truly capable of, and whether some technologies or understandings were lost to time, waiting to be rediscovered. This is more than a catalogue of curiosities. It is an exploration of the boundaries of human potential and the enduring allure of the unknown. As we venture across continents and through millennia, you will encounter devices that resemble modern computers, maps that chart unknown lands, and structures aligned with celestial events in ways that seem impossible without advanced knowledge. Each mystery we uncover will not only deepen your appreciation for ancient civilizations, but also spark a sense of wonder about the gaps in our historical record. How did they achieve such feats? What motivated these incredible undertakings? And what can these puzzles teach us about our own place in the long story of human innovation? Prepare to question assumptions, ignite your curiosity, and join a quest that has captivated scientists, historians, and dreamers for generations. The answers may be elusive, but the journey itself reveals just how extraordinary our shared past truly is. Deep in the azure waters off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, a storm in the year 1900 led to an incredible discovery. Sponge divers seeking refuge stumbled upon an ancient shipwreck, and among the statues and amphorae, they recovered a corroded lump of bronze and wood that would later become one of the most significant archaeological finds in history. This object, now known as the Antikythera Mechanism, sat in a museum for decades before anyone realized its true nature. It wasn't until the 1970s that advanced imaging technology like X-rays and CT scans revealed its breathtaking complexity. Inside that weathered casing was an intricate clockwork of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, precisely calibrated dials, and detailed inscriptions. It was, in essence, a sophisticated mechanical computer designed to predict the movements of the heavens. This wasn't merely a simple calendar. The device could accurately forecast lunar and solar eclipses, track the complex orbit of the moon, and even calculate the timing of ancient athletic games like the Olympics. The level of astronomical understanding embedded in its gears is staggering. It even accounted for the irregular orbit of the moon through a cleverly designed pin and slot mechanism that simulated celestial motion with breathtaking accuracy. The craftsmanship implies the work of a master artisan, someone with a deep understanding of mathematics, metallurgy, and astronomy. What's truly humbling is that technology of this intricacy would not appear again in Europe until the development of mechanical clocks in the 14th century, a gap of over 1,000 years. This forces us to ask a profound question. Was this device a singular masterpiece, a lone genius's creation, or was it part of a broader tradition of ancient Greek technology that has been lost to time? The existence of the Antikythera Mechanism shatters our conventional timeline of scientific progress. We often imagine history as a straight line of increasing technological sophistication, but this artifact suggests there may have been peaks and valleys, moments of advanced knowledge that were later forgotten. Ancient authors like Cicero and Plutarch vaguely referenced such devices, describing planetariums and celestial spheres built by Archimedes and others, but these were often dismissed as legend or exaggeration. The Antikythera Mechanism proves they were describing real technology. It hints at a world where the line between science and magic was blurred, where scholars in Alexandria or Syracuse might have possessed mechanical knowledge that we are only now beginning to rediscover and appreciate. Its very presence on a trading ship suggests it might not have been unique, but perhaps one of many such instruments, a testament to a Hellenistic world buzzing with scientific inquiry and mechanical innovation. As we piece together its fragments, the mechanism is more than a collection of gears. It's a window into the ancient mind. It reveals a people who looked at the cosmos not with primitive superstition, but with a razor-sharp analytical desire to understand its rhythms and rules. They built a machine to model the universe, to bring the celestial dance down to earth where they could turn a handle and see the future unfold. Its discovery in a shipwreck also serves as a poignant reminder of how fragile knowledge can be. How many other libraries, workshops, and marvels lie at the bottom of the Mediterranean, lost to history? The Antikythera Mechanism stands as a silent challenge from the past, urging us to reconsider the capabilities of our ancestors and wonder what other secrets the sea still holds. While the Antikythera Mechanism was a marvel of miniature engineering hidden beneath the waves, our next mystery is a work of colossal artistry stretched across a vast, open canvas, the Nazca Desert of southern Peru. Here, an entire landscape was transformed into a gallery of gigantic figures, a project so immense its full impact can only be appreciated from the vantage point of the skies. Created by the Nazca culture between 500 BC and 500 CE, these geoglyphs were not built upward but etched downward, a subtractive process where ancient artists carefully removed the top layer of dark, sun-baked pebbles to expose the lighter, sandy soil beneath. This technique created stark, contrasting lines that have endured for 2 millennia, preserved by one of the driest and most windless climates on Earth. The result is a sprawling collection of hundreds of figures, from a 300-meter-long hummingbird with wings outstretched to a massive monkey with an intricately coiled tail, alongside geometric shapes like trapezoids and spirals that stretch for kilometers across the desert floor. The most immediate question that arises is one of methodology. How did a people without powered flight, sophisticated surveying tools, or even a written language as we know it, design and execute such precise, massive-scale artwork? Archaeologists propose they likely used a system of scaled-up models. A small design could have been plotted on a grid of strings and stakes, then proportionally enlarged onto the desert plain. Teams of workers would have followed these guidelines, meticulously clearing the stones to form the desired shapes. This was a communal effort, requiring incredible coordination and a shared vision that persisted across generations. The stability of the environment played a crucial role. The lack of rain and wind meant that once the dark stones were removed, the lines would remain clearly visible, a permanent mark upon the earth intended to be seen, but by whom or what? This is the heart of the Nazca enigma. The purpose of these vast drawings has fueled speculation and scholarship for decades. One prominent theory suggests they served as a giant astronomical calendar, with certain lines aligning with the solstice sun or other celestial events, helping to mark seasons for agriculture in an unforgiving environment. Others see a deeper religious function, proposing the lines were sacred pathways walked during rituals, or that the animal figures were spirit beings meant to appeal to the gods for water, the most precious resource in the desert. A more recent and intriguing hypothesis posits that the lines led to sources of water, mapping the subterranean aquifers that were the lifeblood of the Nazca people. The geometric shapes might then indicate areas where water was closer to the surface, turning the entire desert into a ritual map of survival. Yet, the most captivating idea remains that these lines were meant for a viewer from above. This has inevitably led to theories involving ancient astronauts or advanced lost civilizations possessing flight technology. While these are popular in fiction, mainstream archaeology offers a more spiritually profound explanation. The Nazca may have believed their deities resided in the sky. By creating these immense offerings on the ground, they were crafting messages for their gods, who alone had the perspective to see the figures in their full, magnificent glory. The act of creation itself was likely a form of worship, a way to connect the earthly realm with the celestial. The true wonder of the Nazca Lines isn't just in their scale or their precision, but in what they reveal about the human capacity for faith and devotion. A culture poured its collective effort into a project whose ultimate appreciation was, they believed, reserved for the eyes of the divine, leaving behind a breathtaking testament to the power of belief that continues to capture our imagination from the air and from the ground. From the sun-scorched plains of Peru, we now turn to a mystery contained within the fragile pages of a single, enigmatic book. Unlike the monumental scale of the Nazca Lines, this puzzle is one of intricate detail and profound secrecy, a riddle locked in a language that has resisted every attempt to decode it for over a century. The Voynich Manuscript is perhaps the world's most famous unreadable book, a 240-page codex that has become the ultimate challenge for cryptographers, linguists, and historians alike. Its vellum pages, carbon-dated to the early 1400s in northern Italy, are filled from edge to edge with a flowing, unknown script, accompanied by illustrations that are at once familiar and utterly alien. The text, composed of strange, graceful characters that resemble no known alphabet, flows in a pattern that suggests a real language with its own consistent rules and structure, yet its meaning remains tantalizingly out of reach. The illustrations within the manuscript only deepen its mystery, dividing the book into distinct but puzzling sections. There are lavish, full-page paintings of plants that seem to blend the features of known species into impossible hybrids, with roots and leaves that defy botanical classification. Another section is filled with circular, intricate diagrams that resemble astronomical or astrological charts, featuring suns, moons, and stars in unfamiliar constellations, suggesting a unique cosmic understanding. Perhaps most bizarre are the biological pages, which include detailed drawings of small, nude female figures bathing in or connected by pipes and channels to a complex, interconnected system of vessels, a diagram that some have fancifully interpreted as a representation of human reproduction or metabolism, but which remains entirely speculative. The book feels like a scientific or medical text from a world that never existed, a meticulous record of a reality that operates by rules unknown to us. The modern history of the manuscript begins in 1912, when a Polish book dealer named Wilfred Voynich purchased it from a collection of ancient books in Italy. He spent the rest of his life trying to unlock its secrets, bringing it to worldwide attention. Since then, the manuscript has passed through the hands of numerous owners, including a bookseller who sold it to Yale University's Baghdad Rare Book and Manuscript Library in 1969, where it resides today. Its journey to the modern era is a story in itself, with possible ownership traced back to Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II and 17th century alchemists, who may have believed it contained the lost secrets of Roger Bacon. This provenance adds layers of intrigue, connecting the book to a world of Renaissance occultism and the pursuit of hidden knowledge. Over the decades, the manuscript has withstood the assault of the 20th century's greatest code-breaking minds, including teams from the First and Second World Wars who successfully cracked complex military ciphers but were utterly defeated by the Voynich text. Modern computational analysis and artificial intelligence have been brought to bear on the problem, with powerful algorithms analyzing the statistical patterns of the text. These studies confirm that the manuscript does possess the complex structure of a genuine language rather than a random hoax. Its word entropy and letter patterns are consistent with natural linguistic systems like Latin or English. Yet, every proposed decipherment, from claims that it is a coded form of Hebrew or a forgotten dialect of Mexican Spanish, has ultimately failed to produce a coherent, translatable message that experts can agree upon. The text continues to guard its secrets with an almost supernatural stubbornness. This leaves us with a handful of competing theories, none of which are entirely satisfying. The hoax hypothesis suggests a clever forger like Edward Kelly, a known associate of Emperor Rudolph, created an elaborate nonsense book to sell for a high price. However, the incredible consistency and complexity of the text across hundreds of pages make a meaningless forgery seem like an impossibly laborious and pointless endeavor for a 16th century con artist. Another theory posits it is an encoded document, perhaps containing herbal or alchemical secrets that its author wished to hide from the uninitiated. The most tantalizing idea is that it represents a glimpse into a completely lost knowledge system, perhaps a constructed language or the sole surviving document of a culture or intellectual tradition that was otherwise erased from history. The Voynich Manuscript stands as a silent, beautiful, and profoundly frustrating monument to the limits of our understanding, a reminder that the past can still hold documents we can see and touch but cannot truly read, preserving its author's thoughts in a private conversation with time that we are still not invited to join. While the Voynich Manuscript presents a puzzle of ink and vellum, our next mystery is carved from the very earth itself, a monument of staggering scale and weight that has dominated the English landscape for millennia. Rising from the Salisbury Plain, Stonehenge stands as one of the world's most iconic and impenetrable enigmas. This colossal ring of standing stones, some towering over 7 meters high and weighing more than 25 tons, was constructed in stages over a period of more than 1,000 years, beginning around 3000 BC. The sheer ambition of this project is almost incomprehensible. It represents a multi-generational commitment, a sacred goal that was passed down through countless lifetimes. The most baffling aspect isn't just the final arrangement, but the incredible journey these stones undertook to get there, a feat of logistics and determination that continues to stump engineers and archaeologists today. The mystery begins at the source. The largest of Stonehenge's stones are sarsens, a type of sandstone that was likely quarried from the Marlborough Downs, about 20 miles to the north. Moving these behemoths would have been a Herculean task, but it's the smaller blue stones that present the truly profound puzzle. These distinctive spotted dolerite and rhyolite stones, weighing up to 4 tons each, were traced by geologists to the Preseli Hills in West Wales, a distance of over 150 miles. How did Neolithic people 5,000 years ago transport dozens of these massive rocks across such a vast and rugged landscape? The prevailing theory involves a combination of manpower, ingenuity, and patience. They were likely dragged on sledges greased with animal fat, rolled on log rails, or even transported part of the way by water on rafts along the Welsh coast and up rivers. This was not a casual undertaking. It was an endeavor that would have required the coordination of entire communities, a shared belief so powerful it motivated generations to participate in a task of backbreaking difficulty. Once the stones arrived at the site, an even more complex challenge awaited: raising them. The construction techniques reveal a sophisticated understanding of engineering and woodworking. To erect an upright sarsen, builders likely dug a large hole with one sloped side. The stone was then maneuvered over the hole and gradually pulled upright using ropes and A-frames, while teams packed the base with stones and rubble to secure it. The horizontal lintels, which sit perfectly atop the uprights, presented another puzzle. They were likely raised on wooden platforms that were gradually built up, or perhaps levered into place using a sophisticated system of timbers. The genius of these builders is most evident in the stonework itself. The uprights were subtly shaped to allow the lintels to curve, creating the famous circular shape. Even more remarkably, the joints between the stones were made using mortise and tenon pegs, and tongue and groove joints, woodworking techniques masterfully executed in stone, locking the entire structure together with remarkable stability. But the how is only half the story. The why remains one of history's most tantalizing questions. The most compelling clue is its celestial alignment. On the summer solstice, the rising sun directly aligns with the heel stone, casting its rays into the very heart of the stone circle. At the winter solstice, the sun sets perfectly between the uprights of the tallest trilithon. This precise alignment was not a happy accident. It required centuries of meticulous observation of the sun and moon cycles. This suggests Stonehenge functioned as a colossal astronomical calendar, marking the changing seasons for a society deeply connected to the agricultural and ceremonial cycles of the year. It may have been a place of pilgrimage, healing, or ancestor worship, as evidenced by the many burial mounds surrounding the site and the human remains found there, some showing signs of significant injury, perhaps seeking a miracle cure. Stonehenge, therefore, is more than just a pile of old rocks. It is a testament to the power of shared belief and communal effort. It speaks of a society capable of complex organization, long-term planning, and advanced technical skill. It forces us to abandon any notion of our Neolithic ancestors as primitive cave dwellers. Instead, we see them as astronomers, engineers, and visionaries who looked to the skies, understood its rhythms, and were moved to undertake one of the most ambitious building projects in human history, creating a timeless monument to their connection with the cosmos that still captures our wonder today. Far from the crowded continents, on the most isolated inhabited island on Earth, stand the silent giants of Rapa Nui. The Easter Island Moai are more than just statues. They are the profound and enigmatic soul of the Polynesian people who carved them. Reaching this remote volcanic speck in the vast South Pacific Ocean would have been an incredible feat of navigation for the original settlers around 1200 CE. Once there, they embarked on an even more staggering project, carving nearly 900 massive stone figures, the largest of which stands over 30 feet tall and weighs a staggering 82 tons. These are not crude idols. Each Moai is a unique, stylized representation of a deified ancestor, with strong brows, elongated ears, and a solemn, commanding presence, all facing inward to watch over the island's communities. The sheer scale of this endeavor on such a small, resource-limited island is the heart of the mystery. How and why did a society commit so completely to this monumental task? The first part of the puzzle lies in the quarry. Almost all of the Moai were carved from the compressed volcanic ash of a single crater, Rono Reraku. Visiting this site today is an almost surreal experience. It is a hillside workshop frozen in time, with nearly 400 statues in various stages of completion. Some are still attached to the bedrock, only outlined by master carvers. Others are partially freed, lying in wait as if the workers simply put down their tools and never returned. This provides archaeologists with a clear window into the process. Using hand picks made of harder basalt rock, teams of skilled craftsmen would painstakingly shape the stone, likely chanting and working in rhythm. The moai were carved lying on their backs, and once completed, they were detached and carefully moved down the steep crater slopes to begin their journey across the island. But this is where the easy part ended. The question of transportation has sparked debate and experimentation for centuries. The island had no large trees suitable for making rollers or sledges, no wheels, and no draft animals like oxen or horses. So how did they move these multi-ton monoliths for miles over rolling hills? One long-held theory, popularized by the Norwegian explorer Thor Heyerdahl, was that they were laid flat and dragged on log sledges. This method was demonstrated as possible, but it would have consumed enormous amounts of wood and rope, resources that were precious and finite on the island. A more recent and captivating theory, proposed by archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo, is that the statues were walked. In this method, teams of rope pullers would rock the upright statue from side to side, inching it forward with each tilt, much like moving a refrigerator. Experimental attempts to replicate this have shown it to be surprisingly efficient with a coordinated team, making the moai appear to stride majestically across the landscape. However, this method is not without risk, as a loss of control could easily snap the statue at its thin base. Yet the mystery doesn't end with the journey. Once a moai reached its chosen ahu, or ceremonial platform, it had to be erected. This would have been another feat of engineering, likely involving building a large stone ramp and using levers and ropes to painstakingly raise the statue into its final upright position. The final touch, which adds another layer of wonder, was the addition of the large cylindrical topknots made of red scoria stone from a different quarry. These heavy stone hats, some weighing over 10 tons, then had to be lifted and precisely placed on top of the moai's head. The logistical complexity of coordinating all these separate operations, mining the stone, carving the statue and its topknot, transporting them from different quarries, and erecting them points to a highly organized and sophisticated society, not the primitive, isolated culture they were once mistaken for. This immense effort is deeply tied to the island's most famous and cautionary tale, that of ecological and societal collapse. The traditional narrative suggests the Rapa Nui people became so obsessed with statue construction that they deforested their entire island to use the trees as rollers and levers. This led to soil erosion, the collapse of agriculture, and a descent into warfare and cannibalism, where rival clans toppled each other's moai. This story has served as a parable for humanity's tendency to overexploit its environment. However, newer archaeological evidence paints a more complex and nuanced picture. It suggests that the population may have been smaller than previously thought, and that they were remarkably resilient and adaptive farmers. The collapse may have been a more gradual change, exacerbated by the arrival of European diseases and slave raiding in the 1800s. The toppling of the statues might not have been an act of war, but a deliberate cultural shift away from ancestor worship. The true story of the moai is not just one of how they were moved, but why a people would pour their heart and soul into such an endeavor. They were not vanity projects. They were the physical manifestation of a spiritual bond with the land and the ancestors, a desperate and beautiful attempt to ensure stability and prosperity in one of the most remote and challenging places on Earth. While the moai of Easter Island stand as a testament to monumental spiritual expression, Our next discovery is a marvel of miniature engineering, one that hints at a sophisticated understanding of principles we consider distinctly modern. In the 1930s, during excavations near Baghdad, workers unearthed a set of objects that seemed profoundly out of place. From a Parthian-era archaeological site, dating roughly from 250 BC to 250 CE, they recovered a simple clay jar about the size of a man's fist. Inside, however, was anything but simple. A carefully rolled copper sheet formed a cylinder housing an iron rod, all sealed at the top with an asphalt plug. To the trained eye of Wilhelm Koenig, the German director of the National Museum of Iraq, this assembly bore a striking resemblance to a fundamental component of the modern world, an electrochemical cell. This unassuming artifact, now known as the Baghdad Battery, poses a shocking question. Could ancient civilizations have harnessed electricity over 2,000 years ago? The scientific principle at work is elegantly simple. If the jar were filled with an acidic or alkaline liquid, such as vinegar or grape juice, a chemical reaction would occur. The acidic electrolyte would interact with the two different metals, the copper cylinder and the iron rod, creating a potential difference or voltage between them. The iron would act as the anode, corroding and releasing electrons, while the copper would act as the cathode, receiving those electrons. Connecting the two metals with a wire would allow a small electric current to flow, effectively turning the jar into a primitive battery, capable of generating roughly 1 volt of electricity. This isn't mere speculation. Modern replicas using the same materials and design have proven that it works exactly as theorized, producing a low but consistent electrical charge. This isn't the stuff of legend or fringe science. It's a demonstrable physical phenomenon built from commonly available materials of the era. This leads to the most compelling and debated question. If it was a battery, what on earth was it used for? One of the most plausible theories involves the art of electroplating, the process of using an electric current to coat a common metal with a thin layer of a more precious one, like gold or silver. Artisans of the Parthian and later Sassanid empires were known for their exquisite metalwork, and some artifacts from the region show objects plated with gold in a way that is difficult to explain with known chemical gilding techniques. The use of a weak electrical current could account for the fine, even coatings found on some pieces. A series of these batteries, connected together to increase the voltage, could have provided enough power for such a delicate task, suggesting workshops where these cells hummed with quiet energy, creating objects of beauty and value. Another fascinating possibility lies in the realm of ancient medicine. Texts from Greek and Roman times describe the use of electric fish, like the torpedo ray, to administer shocks for the treatment of pain and ailments like gout or headaches. The tingling sensation was believed to have therapeutic properties. It is not a great leap to imagine a healer or priest using a manufactured device to produce a similar, more controllable effect. A patient might hold the iron rod while the copper cylinder was applied to a specific part of the body, creating a localized tingling or numbing sensation. In a world where the lines between science, magic, and religion were blurred, such a device would have been a powerful tool, its mysterious energy likely attributed to divine or spiritual forces. The psychological impact alone, the awe of feeling an invisible force, could have been a potent part of the healing ritual. Of course, skepticism is a vital part of archaeology. Detractors offer alternative explanations for the object's purpose. Some suggest it was simply a secure storage container for precious scrolls, with the asphalt seal protecting the contents from moisture. The problem with this theory is that the choice of metals seems unnecessarily complex and reactive for mere storage. A simple sealed jar would have sufficed. The specific combination of copper and iron, known to create an electrochemical reaction, is simply too coincidental to ignore. The true mystery may not be whether it could work, but why we have found so few of them, and why no clear textual or illustrative evidence exists to explain their use. This silence in the historical record is perhaps the most frustrating part of the puzzle, leaving us with a working device but no owner's manual. The implications of the Baghdad Battery are profound, quietly revolutionary. It challenges the standard Eurocentric timeline of scientific discovery that credits Alessandro Volta with inventing the first true battery in 1800. It suggests that the spark of scientific inquiry and experimentation has flickered independently in different cultures and eras, sometimes catching flame and sometimes being snuffed out by time, war, or simply a failure to pass the knowledge on. The Baghdad Battery doesn't demand a rewrite of history books, but it does ask for a more open-minded reading of them. It stands as a humble, earthenware testament to the innovative and observant spirit of ancient peoples, reminding us that our ancestors were not just primitive philosophers but practical experimenters who may have stumbled upon the secrets of the universe, held them in their hands for a moment, and then, for reasons we may never know, let them slip back into the sands of time. Just a few decades after Columbus made his famous voyage, in the year 1513, an Ottoman admiral and cartographer named Piri Reis sat down to compile a world map of staggering ambition. He wasn't working from scratch. In the margins of his creation, he left detailed notes explaining that he had drawn upon 20 older source maps, including those from the time of Alexander the Great, and even referenced a map used by Columbus himself. The result was a fragment of a larger world map that has since become one of the most controversial and perplexing documents in history. What makes the Piri Reis map so extraordinary isn't just what it shows, but what it shows with an accuracy that seems to defy the very timeline of exploration. It depicts the coastlines of Western Africa, the eastern bulge of South America, and a series of islands with a clarity that was uncommon for the period. Yet, its most jaw-dropping feature lies far to the south, a landmass that bears a startling resemblance to the continent of Antarctica, a land that would not be officially sighted by European explorers for another 300 years. The mystery deepens when we consider the state of Antarctic knowledge in the 16th century. The continent is famously sheathed in a miles-thick ice cap that has made its true coastline invisible to the naked eye for millions of years. Modern seismic surveys and satellite radar have only recently allowed us to map the actual landmass hidden beneath all that ice. Astonishingly, the land profile on the Piri Reis map seems to align not with the icy outline we see today, but with the subglacial topography of Queen Maud Land, the actual bedrock coastline. This presents an impossible scenario. How could a 16th century admiral have knowledge of a coastline that had been buried under ice for millennia? The most compelling theory suggests that Reis was indeed telling the truth in his notes. He was copying from far, far older source maps. These original charts would have had to been created in a remote epoch, a time when Antarctica was free of ice and could be surveyed directly, a period that geologists estimate ended over 6 million years ago. This line of thinking inevitably leads to a profound and unsettling question about human history. Could there have been a seafaring civilization lost to time that achieved global exploration during a prehistoric warm period? The concept, popularized by historians like Charles Hapgood, suggests that an advanced but unknown culture possessed the navigational skill and scientific knowledge to accurately map the world, including Antarctica's true landmass. Their cartographic legacy, according to this theory, was passed down through the ages, copied and recopied by successive cultures like the Minoans, Phoenicians, or the Great Library of Alexandria, eventually finding its way into the hands of medieval scholars and finally Piri Reis. This would mean that our understanding of human technological progress is fundamentally flawed, that a cycle of civilization and collapse has occurred before, wiping all but the faintest echoes of its achievement from the historical record. Of course, mainstream scholarship offers more conservative explanations. Many cartographers argue that the southern landmass on the map is not Antarctica at all, but a distorted, speculative interpretation of the southern coast of South America, a common practice in an era where mapmakers often filled blank spaces with hypothetical lands. Others propose that the map could be a composite of various Portuguese and Spanish explorations that are poorly documented in the official historical record. The precise longitudinal accuracy is also a point of contention. While the map is remarkably good for its time, it still contains significant errors and distortions that align with the typical limitations of early 16th century cartography. The alignment with the subglacial coast could be dismissed as coincidence, a lucky guess by an artist trying to complete the southern portion of his map. Yet, the enduring allure of the Piri Reis map lies in its stubborn refusal to be easily explained away. It exists as a tantalizing outlier, a document that feels both of its time and eerily out of time. It challenges the neat, linear narrative of discovery we learn in school, hinting at a messier, more complex history of global interconnection and lost knowledge. Whether it is a miraculous preservation of ancient geography or simply a brilliant but flawed product of its era, the map serves as a powerful symbol. It reminds us that the past is not a fully illuminated room but a shadowy corridor, and that every so often we find a flicker of light from a door we didn't even know was there, suggesting that the story of human exploration is far older and more mysterious than we ever imagined. High above the modern city of Cusco, perched on a mountainside that once formed the ceremonial head of the Inca Empire's puma-shaped capital, the fortress of Sacsayhuamán presents a sight that defies belief and chronology. Here, the Incas constructed walls that are less a feat of construction and more a form of petrified magic, a puzzle carved in stone that has humbled engineers and archaeologists for centuries. The most famous of these walls is a zigzagging series of 3 tiers, built from limestone blocks so colossal they seem like the playthings of giants. The largest of these stones stands an awe-inspiring 28 feet tall and is estimated to weigh a staggering 360,000 pounds. To stand before them is to feel a profound sense of scale, not just of the stones themselves, but of the ambition that moved them. The immediate and overwhelming question is one of method. How did a culture that lacked iron tools, the wheel, or draft animals quarry, shape, and position such monstrous rocks? The Incas had bronze and stone tools, hardened hammers, bronze chisels, and perhaps tools made from an even harder material like hematite. The prevailing theory is that they used a technique of patient persuasion rather than brute force. To extract a block from the quarry, they likely drilled a line of holes along the desired fracture line and then drove wooden wedges into them. By soaking these wedges with water, they would expand, creating immense pressure that would cleanly split the stone along a precise plane. It was a slow, meticulous process that spoke of a deep understanding of material properties and geology, turning the very weaknesses of the stone into a tool for its own shaping. But the quarry was only the beginning of the challenge. Transporting a 300-ton block over several miles of rugged, mountainous terrain to the building site is a logistical nightmare that modern engineers would approach with massive cranes and heavy machinery. The Incas had only manpower, ropes, and ingenuity. The most accepted theory involves a combination of rolling the stones on logs and dragging them on earthen ramps using the collective strength of hundreds, if not thousands, of workers. This would have been an endeavor of incredible social organization, a testament to the power of the Sapa Inca to mobilize his people for a communal project that blended the practical need for defense with the spiritual imperative to honor their gods and their empire. The sound must have been deafening: the groaning of ropes, the rhythmic chanting of teams pulling in unison, and the grinding of stone on wood as these behemoths inched their way up the mountainside. However, the true genius of Sacsayhuamán is not in the size of the stones, but in their fit. This is where the mystery becomes truly profound. Each block is a unique, irregular polygon, with anywhere from 6 to a dozen or more sides. Yet they fit together with a precision that is simply baffling. The joints between them are so tight, so seamless, that it is famously said not even a razor blade or a single piece of paper can be inserted between them. This is not a poetic exaggeration, it is a measurable, observable fact. This kind of precision would be difficult to achieve even with modern laser-guided cutting tools. The Incas did it with stone hammers and abrasives like sand. They likely employed a technique of trial and error using a process called bedding. A newly arrived stone would be placed next to its intended neighbor, and its edges would be dusted with a colored pigment. The masons would then rock it or tap it to see where it made contact, grinding down those high spots with abrasives until the entire surface made a perfect, even contact. This painstaking process, repeated for thousands of stones, represents an almost unimaginable investment of time and patience. This incredible precision was not merely for aesthetic showmanship, it was a stroke of seismic genius. Peru sits on the volatile Pacific Ring of Fire, a region plagued by frequent and powerful earthquakes. Conventional walls built with mortar and rectangular blocks are rigid. When the ground shakes, they crack and crumble. The walls of Sacsayhuamán, however, are engineered to dance. The interlocking jigsaw puzzle design and the subtle inward tilt of the walls create a structure that is incredibly stable. During an earthquake, the stones in a mortared wall would all move in the same direction simultaneously, creating catastrophic stress points. At Sacsayhuamán, each irregularly shaped stone is free to vibrate and shift minutely within its own unique space, dissipating the energy of the quake throughout the entire structure. The walls literally tremble together and then settle back into place, a choreographed performance of survival that has allowed them to stand unbroken for over 500 years, while modern buildings in Cusco below have repeatedly fallen. Beyond the physics, these walls speak to the very soul of Inca cosmology. The Incas did not see themselves as conquerors of nature, but as an integral part of it. Their architecture reflects a deep desire to harmonize with the landscape, not dominate it. The stones of Sacsayhuamán were not cut into uniform, artificial shapes. They were worked to retain their essential, organic form, and then fitted together in a way that echoes the natural order of the world. The walls look as if they grew directly from the mountain itself, a permanent and powerful extension of the living earth. This was more than a fortress, it was a sacred statement in stone, a declaration that the power of the Inca Empire was as enduring and inseparable from the land as these mighty rocks. They didn't just build a wall, they wove their civilization into the very fabric of the Andes, creating a legacy of resilience that continues to leave visitors breathless and baffled in equal measure. While the walls of Sacsayhuamán stand as a monument to Inca ingenuity under the open sky, our next mystery descends into the silent, shadowy depths of the earth, into a man-made underworld so vast and secret that its very existence was unknown until the most serendipitous of discoveries. In the village of Longyou in China's Zhejiang province, A local farmer decided to pump the water out of a small, deep pond in 1992, believing it might be bottomless. What he revealed was not a natural abyss, but the entrance to an astonishing artificial cavern. This single act of curiosity unlocked the door to one of the largest and most baffling underground constructions on the planet. To date, 36 such caves have been discovered, each a monumental chamber hand carved from the solid sandstone bedrock, a subterranean complex that collectively covers a staggering 30,000 square meters. These are not rough, crude holes in the ground. They are immense, precision-engineered spaces with soaring ceilings, massive supporting pillars, and intricately carved walls, all executed with a consistency and skill that defies their estimated age of over 2,000 years. The sheer scale of the undertaking is almost impossible to comprehend. Archaeologists estimate that the removal of rock to create just one of these average-sized caves would have involved excavating nearly 1,000 cubic meters of stone. For the entire complex, that translates to roughly 900,000 cubic meters of solid sandstone. To put that in perspective, that's enough material to fill a line of large dump trucks stretching from New York City to Philadelphia. And this was all accomplished with hand tools by a workforce that must have numbered in the thousands, laboring in the dim, dusty confines of the underground. The logistics are mind-boggling. How were they organized? How was the debris removed? Where did they put all that rock? The complete absence of any spoil heap or rubble pile near the sites is a mystery in itself, suggesting an almost supernatural level of planning and cleanup, as if the very evidence of their toil was deliberately erased from the landscape. But the mystery only deepens when you step inside and observe the breathtaking craftsmanship. The walls and ceilings are not merely functional. They are finished with an artistic and technical flourish that serves no obvious practical purpose. Every single surface is covered in a uniform, parallel chisel mark pattern, a series of diagonal lines etched into the stone with a consistent angle and spacing of about 60 centimeters. This is not the work of rushed laborers. It is the signature of master craftsmen applying a decorative, standardized finish across tens of thousands of square meters of wall. The effect is both beautiful and bewildering. Why go to such extraordinary effort in a place of pure utility? The markings would have required additional, dedicated labor beyond the initial excavation, suggesting that the aesthetic appearance of these hidden chambers was of paramount importance to their creators, that they were meant to be seen and appreciated, even if only by a select few. The precision of the engineering is another layer of the puzzle. The caves maintain a consistent slope from the entrance to the rear, a feature that would have been crucial for drainage and preventing flooding. The walls are paper-thin in some places, with partitions between chambers measuring only 50 centimeters thick, yet they have supported the immense weight of the sandstone above for millennia without collapsing. The pillars are perfectly spaced to distribute the ceiling load, and the angles where the walls meet are sharp and true. This demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of structural mechanics and geology. The builders knew exactly how much rock they could remove and where they needed to leave supports to prevent a catastrophic collapse, knowledge that would have been gained through painful trial and error, yet we have no record of any such learning process. This complete absence from the historical record is perhaps the most deafening silence surrounding the Longyou caves. A project of this magnitude involving a massive workforce, consuming vast resources, and requiring generations to complete should have left an indelible mark on the local history, economy, and culture. Yet there is nothing, no ancient texts, no folk legends, no pottery shards, not even a single tool left behind in any of the caves. It is a historical black hole. They do not appear in any tax records which would have noted such a large-scale mobilization of labor. They are not mentioned in any poems or stories. It is as if they were built by ghosts. This has led to intense speculation about their purpose. Were they imperial tombs that were never used? A secret quarry for a building project that we have yet to identify? A hidden military barracks or storage complex? The most compelling theory suggests they were a sacred space, an artificial representation of the underworld or a realm of deities, used for rituals that were so secret they were never written down, their very existence known only to an initiated priesthood that took its secrets to the grave. The Longyou caves stand as a silent, stunning rebuke to our assumption that history is a well-documented book. They are a testament to a colossal human endeavor that has somehow vanished completely from the collective memory of an entire civilization. They force us to confront the humbling reality that vast chapters of the human story can be lost, that immense works of art and engineering can be built and then simply forgotten, waiting patiently for a farmer with a water pump to bring them back into the light, not with answers, but with a deeper, more profound set of questions about what we truly know of our past. Deep within the crypts of the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, far from the sunlit courtyards where ancient Egyptians once worshipped the goddess of joy and love, lies a series of stone reliefs that have sparked one of the most electrifying debates in all of archaeology. Carved into the sandstone walls in the 1st century BC, these intricate bas-reliefs depict a scene that, to a modern eye, appears startlingly familiar. They show a large, elongated object reminiscent of a glass bulb with a snake-like form writhing inside its center. This filament is held taut by a pair of pillars, and at its base, the bulb seems to be plugged into a box from which a cable-like cord extends, held in the hand of a nearby figure. To many who first see it, the interpretation is instantaneous and shocking. It looks unmistakably like an ancient electric light bulb. This is the heart of the Dendera light bulb mystery, a theory that suggests the ancient Egyptians may have harnessed electricity thousands of years before its official discovery. Proponents of this theory, like the authors Erich von Däniken and Peter Krasser, point to the striking visual parallels. They argue that the object's shape is too precise, too technical, to be mere symbolism. The bulb is often referred to as a Crookes tube or a Jaissler tube, early types of experimental light bulbs from the 19th century that did indeed resemble this carved image. They suggest that the box represents an ancient battery, perhaps similar to the Baghdad Battery, and the cord is an insulated cable. The figure holding the cord is interpreted as a priest or technician operating the device. They even point to the absence of soot in the deep, enclosed temple corridors and tombs as potential evidence. If the Egyptians had electric light, they wouldn't have needed torches or oil lamps that would have blackened the ceilings with residue. This theory paints a picture of an advanced technological society whose secrets were lost to time, their knowledge preserved only in cryptic stone carvings misunderstood by later generations. However, Egyptologists and mainstream archaeologists offer a profoundly different and symbolically rich interpretation rooted in the well-documented mythology of ancient Egypt. They explain that the relief is not a technical diagram but a spiritual one depicting a core creation myth. The so-called bulb is actually a blossoming lotus flower, a powerful symbol of creation and rebirth emerging from the primordial waters. The filament inside is not a tungsten wire but a snake, representing the god Harsomptus, a manifestation of the sun god being born from the lotus. The cable is not an electrical wire but a lotus stem, and the box is a jed pillar, a symbol of stability and the backbone of the god Osiris. The entire scene is a visual story of divine genesis, showing the moment a deity emerges from the sacred flower to bring light and life into the world, a light that is spiritual and cosmic, not electrical. This mythological reading is supported by the context of the entire wall. The relief is not an isolated image. It is part of a larger narrative sequence that includes other gods and well-known Egyptian symbols. Furthermore, the technology required for glassblowing to create such a bulb did not exist in Ptolemaic Egypt. The intricate vacuum and sealing necessary to create a functional light bulb are feats of materials science that were utterly beyond the capabilities of the ancient world. The argument about the lack of soot is also countered by evidence. Archaeologists have found ample remains of oil lamps and torches used in tombs, and the strategic placement of highly polished metal mirrors to reflect sunlight deep into corridors is a far more plausible explanation for lighting dark chambers than a lost technology that left no physical evidence behind beyond a single, ambiguous carving. The enduring power of the Dendera light theory lies not in its scientific plausibility, but in what it reveals about our own relationship with the past. It represents a deep human desire to find familiar patterns in the unfamiliar, to see our own technological reflection in the accomplishments of ancient cultures. We look at the immense pyramids, the precise stonework, and the sophisticated art, and we struggle to reconcile it with the standard narrative of a Bronze Age society. The idea of a lost advanced technology provides a seductively simple answer. The Dendera carving becomes a Rorschach test. What you see in it depends heavily on what you want to believe. It challenges us to confront our assumptions and asks whether we are interpreting the past through their eyes or through our own modern lens. While it is almost certainly a beautiful myth carved in stone and not a blueprint for ancient electricity, it remains a powerful symbol. It reminds us that the true light of ancient Egypt was the brilliance of its mythology and its artists, who could carve a story so compelling that it continues to ignite imaginations and spark debate 2,000 years after the last chisel was laid to rest. Just when we thought we had a clear understanding of humanity's journey from nomadic foraging to settled farming and civilization, a hilltop in southeastern Turkey delivered a revelation that has fundamentally shaken the foundations of archaeology. Known as Göbekli Tepe, which translates to Potbelly Hill, this site doesn't just nudge the timeline of complex society, it shatters it. Dating back to an almost incomprehensible 9600 BCE, this complex predates Stonehenge by over 6 millennia and the Great Pyramids of Giza by a staggering 7,000 years. What makes this date so revolutionary is the context. This was the pre-pottery Neolithic period, a time when humans were universally believed to be small, mobile bands of hunter-gatherers, living a hand-to-mouth existence focused solely on survival. They were not supposed to be capable of large-scale, coordinated projects. Göbekli Tepe proves undeniably that they were. The scale of the construction is breathtaking. The site consists of multiple circular enclosures, each defined by massive, T-shaped limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons. These aren't rough-hewn stones. They are masterfully quarried, transported, and erected monoliths, with the largest standing over 16 feet tall. Arranged in circles, these pillars often surround two even larger central pillars, creating a ritual space that feels both imposing and intentional. The quarrying alone would have required a sophisticated understanding of geology to extract these beams from the bedrock using only stone tools. Then came the Herculean task of moving them. Without wheels or domesticated animals like oxen, the builders likely used a combination of log rollers, rope made from plant fibers, and the brute force of hundreds of people working in concert to drag these colossal stones nearly 500 feet from the quarry to the hilltop summit. This was not a casual project. It was an undertaking that would have required planning, leadership, and a highly motivated labor force. This brings us to the central paradigm-shifting question posed by Göbekli Tepe. Why? Why would nomadic hunter-gatherers, who presumably needed to follow migrating herds and ripening plants to feed themselves, commit to such a massive, stationary, and time-consuming project? The conventional narrative of human progress has long held that agriculture came first. The theory was that the discovery of farming created a food surplus, which allowed people to settle down in permanent villages. This settled life, with its spare time and larger population, then led to social stratification, specialized skills, and ultimately, the complex belief systems that inspired the building of temples and monuments. Göbekli Tepe turns this entire sequence on its head. Here, we have a magnificent ceremonial complex built by people who, according to all evidence, were still hunters and foragers. This suggests a radical new idea. Perhaps it was the urge to worship, to gather for shared rituals, that provided the motivation for people to come together and settle down. In other words, the gods may have come before the farm. The intricate artistry carved into the pillars provides a tantalizing glimpse into the symbolic world of these ancient people. The stones are not blank, they are a canvas teeming with life. A menagerie of animals is depicted in high relief: foxes, snakes, wild boars, gazelles, cranes, and ferocious predators like lions and scorpions. These are not the docile, domesticated animals of a farming society, but the powerful, wild creatures of the hunt and the untamed world. This suggests a religion deeply intertwined with the natural environment, likely involving animistic beliefs or shamanistic rituals. The carvings might represent totemic clan symbols, spirit guides, or deities beseeched for a successful hunt. The consistent repetition of the T-shape for the pillars is also significant. Many researchers believe these represent stylized human forms, perhaps ancestors or gods, with the top bar being the head and the shaft the body. Some pillars even have carved arms, hands, and loincloths, making the human connection explicit. This was a sacred space where the community gathered to connect with the spiritual forces that governed their world. The logistics of supporting the workers who built Göbekli Tepe add another layer to the mystery. Feeding hundreds of laborers engaged in such strenuous work would have required a reliable and plentiful food source. There is evidence at the site of large-scale processing of wild grains and the hunting of gazelle and aurochs. To sustain the construction efforts, these hunter-gatherers may have been forced to intensively manage the local resources, deliberately encouraging the growth of wild stands of wheat and barley, and perhaps even beginning to protect and herd animals. In this light, Göbekli Tepe might not just be a precursor to religion, but the very catalyst for agriculture itself. The need to feed the congregation that built the temple could have sparked the first experiments in cultivation, setting humanity on the path to farming and the settled life that followed. After its use for over 1,000 years, the entire complex was deliberately and carefully buried around 8000 BC, filled in with soil and rubble. This act of burial is what preserved it so perfectly for us to discover, but it also adds one final profound mystery. Why would a people so invested in this sacred place choose to entomb it? Was it an act of reverence, a way to protect it for eternity? Or was it a closing chapter, a ritual farewell to an old way of life as they finally transitioned to the very farming communities their own temple may have helped to create? Göbekli Tepe stands not as a ruin but as a challenge, forcing us to rewrite our story and consider that the human impulse to create, to believe, and to come together in awe is the most powerful engine of change we have ever known. Nestled on a grassy slope in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland, The Kachno stone is a sprawling sandstone canvas that holds one of Europe's most widespread and persistent artistic mysteries. Discovered in 1887 by the Reverend James Harvey, this massive slab measuring 42 feet by 26 feet is not a standalone oddity, but perhaps the most spectacular example of a phenomenon found on thousands of stones across the continent. Its surface is a dense tapestry of swirling, concentric circles, some with radiating lines, intermingled with countless small, hemispherical depressions known as cup marks. This is not random weathering or geological pitting. The precision and intentionality of the designs are immediately apparent, a complex language of symbols pecked into the rock by Stone Age artists over 5,000 years ago, using nothing more than simple stone tools and an immense amount of patience and purpose. The sheer scale and density of the Kachno stone's carvings are what set it apart, but its patterns are far from unique. From the mountains of Portugal and Spain to the moors of northern England and the coasts of Ireland, similar motifs appear on boulders and outcrops, a silent, shared vocabulary stretching across thousands of miles. This geographic spread suggests these symbols were not the isolated doodlings of a single tribe, but part of a profound and widespread cultural tradition that connected Neolithic and early Bronze Age peoples. The consistency of the symbols, the cup marks, the rings, the grooves, implies a shared set of ideas or beliefs that transcended local dialects and customs. It was a pan-European phenomenon, a visual language that would have been recognizable to people from different regions, a common thread in the fabric of prehistoric Europe that has since frayed and been lost to time. Interpreting this ancient language has proven to be one of archaeology's most enduring challenges. One compelling theory posits that these carvings are a form of celestial cartography. The complex patterns of rings and cups could represent star constellations, the moon's phases, or significant astronomical events like solstices or eclipses. In this reading, the Kachno stone and others like it become permanent observatories, stone calendars used to track time and seasons, crucial for agricultural and ritual cycles. The radiating lines might chart the movement of celestial bodies, allowing ancient sky watchers to predict events that govern their lives. Another hypothesis views them as territorial maps, with the symbols denoting features of the surrounding landscape, rivers, mountains, and settlements, creating a sacred geography that connected the people to their land. The cups could represent important water sources or burial sites, while the encircling rings might mark territorial boundaries or ritual pathways. A more spiritually inclined interpretation sees the stones not as practical guides but as portals to the other world. The act of carving the stone itself may have been a ritualistic practice, a way to connect with the earth and the divine. The circular motifs are universal symbols of eternity and cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The cup marks, often found in groups, might have been used to hold offerings of water, blood, or grain as part of ceremonies. Some researchers have even suggested that the designs are meant to be traced with the fingers during trance-like states, aiding in shamanic journeys or meditative practices. The physical act of engaging with the carvings could have been as important as the symbols themselves, a tactile form of worship or communication with ancestral spirits. The modern history of the Kachno stone adds a curious layer to its story. In 1965, an archaeologist named Ludovic McClellan, convinced the stone held astronomical secrets, took the controversial step of painting the carvings in bright white paint to better photograph and study them. He even added a large pair of feet, aligning them with the solstice to support his theory. While this act is now seen as a well-intentioned but damaging intervention, it highlights the powerful desire to solve the stone's mystery. Fearing further vandalism and damage, the authorities made the difficult decision to rebury the stone in 1965, shielding it from view and preserving it for future generations. It remained hidden for over 50 years, a secret kept by the Earth, until a team from the University of Glasgow carefully re-excavated it in 2015 for detailed digital scanning and study. This act of reburial and resurrection mirrors the stone's own enigmatic nature, a message that is repeatedly hidden and revealed, its meaning always just out of reach. The true power of the Kachno stone and its countless cousins across Europe lies not in any single interpretation, but in what it represents about our shared human journey. It is a powerful reminder of a deep, primal urge to make our mark, to communicate something of our existence to the future. These carvings are among humanity's first attempts to move beyond spoken language and create a permanent record to say, "We were here and this is what we believe." They represent a bridge between the tangible world of rock and the intangible world of thought, symbol, and spirit. While we may never definitively crack their code, their enduring presence continues to connect us across an immense gulf of time, inviting us to ponder the minds of those who, thousands of years ago, looked at a blank slate of stone and saw a surface waiting to be filled with meaning. Amidst the towering, snow-capped peaks of the Bayan Mountains on the border between China and Tibet, an archaeological expedition in 1938 reportedly stumbled upon a discovery so bizarre it would fuel speculation for decades to come. Led by a professor named Kai Pu-te, the team was investigating a series of intricate cave systems when they found something far more unexpected than ancient tools or pottery. According to the story, they discovered a neat rows of graves, each containing the skeletal remains of unusually small, large-headed beings, their fragile frames suggesting a stature of only around 4 feet tall. But the truly astonishing find was scattered throughout the burial site and lining the cave walls, hundreds of mysterious stone discs, each about 9 inches in diameter with a perfectly round hole in the center, resembling primitive phonograph records or stone wheels. These objects, which would come to be known as the Dropa stones, are the centerpiece of one of archaeology's most tantalizing and controversial tales, a story that sits precariously on the blurry line between groundbreaking discovery and elaborate hoax. The narrative takes its most extraordinary turn years later, in 1962, when a Chinese scientist named Nui allegedly managed to decipher the minuscule hieroglyphics that spiraled along a groove on each stone. The script, he claimed, told an incredible story. It spoke of a spacecraft from a distant world that crash-landed in the mountains 12,000 years ago. The survivors, a peaceful people called the Dropa, found themselves stranded on an alien planet and unable to repair their vessel. The local Ham tribesmen, initially fearful of the strange newcomers, reportedly hunted them down, killing most of the survivors. The inscription on the stones was said to be their tragic plea for understanding and a chronicle of their doomed existence on Earth. If this translation were true, it would be the most profound discovery in human history, physical proof of extraterrestrial contact in our planet's remote past, fundamentally rewriting our understanding of our own origins and place in the cosmos. However, the story of the Dropa stones unravels almost as quickly as it is woven, primarily due to a complete absence of verifiable evidence. The original 1938 expedition led by Kai Pu-te cannot be confirmed through any independent academic or governmental records from the period. The scientist Nui is himself a figure of mystery. His name does not conform to standard Chinese naming conventions, and no credible academic publications under that name have ever been produced. The stones themselves have never been made available for proper scientific analysis by the international community. Photographs that purport to show the discs are grainy and inconclusive, and the physical specimens have seemingly vanished without a trace. In the world of serious archaeology, where peer review and evidence are paramount, the Dropa stones are universally dismissed as a complete fabrication, a modern myth that borrowed the aesthetic of ancient artifacts to tell a science fiction story. So how did such a fantastical tale take root? The story first entered Western popular culture through a series of articles in a German paranormal magazine called Das Vegetarische Universum in the 1960s, and was later sensationalized by authors like Erich von Däniken in his best-selling book Chariots of the Gods. It arrived at a perfect cultural moment, capturing the burgeoning public fascination with UFOs, ancient astronauts, and the idea that human history might be far stranger than textbooks allowed. The tale's enduring power lies in its narrative simplicity and emotional core. It is a story of stranded travelers, misunderstanding, and tragedy, a cosmic version of a classic tale that resonates on a human level. It taps into a deep-seated desire for our history to be more dramatic, for the universe to be more populated, and for answers to our origins to be found not just in the dust of Earth, but among the stars. The most likely explanation for the stones themselves is far more terrestrial, though still intriguing. They bear a strong resemblance to known Chinese artifacts called Bai discs. These jade discs, with their central hole, have been found in Neolithic graves throughout China and are believed to have served a ceremonial or ritual purpose, possibly representing the heavens or acting as a symbol of wealth and status. It is possible that the entire Dropa story was constructed around a real but misidentified collection of such Bai discs, their true cultural significance lost in the translation into a more sensational narrative. The story of the Dropa stones ultimately serves as a powerful cautionary tale about the nature of evidence and the human hunger for wonder. It highlights the critical importance of skepticism and the rigorous methods of historical inquiry, reminding us that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Yet, it also acknowledges a fundamental truth. Sometimes the most enduring mysteries are not those carved in stone, but those woven from our own boundless imagination and our timeless desire to look to the stars and wonder if we are truly alone. Stretching across the Breton countryside in northwestern France, the Karnak alignments present a spectacle of order on a scale that is almost military in its precision. Unlike the clustered circles of Stonehenge or the isolated Moai of Easter Island, here the mystery lies in the overwhelming repetition and alignment of over 3,000 megaliths, standing like a petrified army in rows that march across the landscape for more than 4 kilometers. Erected over a period of several centuries around 4,500 BC, these stones are predominantly local granite, dragged into position and planted firmly in the earth by a Neolithic society that left no written record of their intent. The sheer numbers are staggering. The Voynich alignment alone features 1,099 stones arranged in 11 converging rows, a project that would have required not just immense physical effort but a visionary plan spanning generations. The most immediate question that confronts a visitor is not just why, but how. How did a people with basic stone and wood tools manage such a feat of large-scale landscape engineering? The process began at the quarry, where fire and water were likely used to fracture the bedrock and pry loose the massive stones. Using ropes made from plant fibers and levers of stout timber, teams of workers would then have transported these multi-ton monoliths. The most plausible method involved a combination of wooden sledges greased with animal fat, rollers made from tree trunks, and the coordinated muscle power of dozens, if not hundreds, of people for the largest stones. This was not a haphazard effort. The consistent alignment and spacing suggest the use of surveying techniques involving sighting poles and ropes of standardized length to maintain the straight lines over undulating terrain. The coordination implies a social structure with clear leadership, a shared labor system, and a communal commitment to a goal whose importance was so profound it compelled this immense investment. Unraveling the purpose behind this colossal undertaking has fueled academic debate and local legend for centuries. One of the oldest and most persistent theories casts the alignments as a grand astronomical observatory. Some researchers have noted that the major axes of the stone rows appear to align with the rising and setting points of the sun at the solstices, and potentially with the moon at major standstills. In this view, the lines could have served as a colossal calendar, their shadows and sightlines helping a farming society mark the changing seasons, predict eclipses, and organize their ritual and agricultural year. The stones themselves, in this interpretation, become permanent markers of celestial movements, a sacred clock built into the very fabric of the land. A more spiritually focused theory sees the rose not as a scientific instrument but as a sacred pathway. The parallel lines may have defined a processional route for religious ceremonies, guiding participants toward a ceremonial space or a burial ground. The eastern end of many alignments often features a semicircular enclosure or a large dolmen, suggesting a terminal point for rituals. Walking between the towering stones, which grow in height toward the western end, would have been an experience designed to inspire awe and a sense of connection with the ancestors whose tombs dotted the surrounding landscape. The stones might represent a grand avenue connecting the realm of the living with the realm of the dead, or perhaps were believed to contain the spirits of ancestors themselves, standing in perpetual vigil over the community. Another compelling hypothesis connects the stones to the very practical challenge of living in this environment. Brittany is a land shaped by the sea and wind, where managing water and fertile land was crucial for survival. Some archaeologists propose that the alignment served a complex social and territorial function, marking clan boundaries, defining pastorellands for grazing, or even acting as a sophisticated system for managing water drainage across the peninsula. The lines might have mapped invisible social structures onto the physical world, making the organization of the community and its resources tangible and permanent. This turns the alignments from a purely ritual space into a multifunctional project that blended the practical, the social, and the sacred into a single, powerful statement in stone. The true power of Karnak likely lies in a combination of all these ideas. For its builders, the divisions we make between science, religion, and society probably did not exist. The cycles of the sun and moon were not just astronomical events. They were divine movements that dictated when to plant, when to harvest, and when to honor the gods. Marking territory was not just a legal matter, it was a sacred duty to one's ancestors and clan. The Karnak alignments stand as the ultimate expression of this holistic worldview. They are a testament to a society capable of breathtaking organization and long-term planning, a society that sought to weave its understanding of the cosmos, its reverence for its ancestors, and its claim to the land into a single, monumental tapestry of stone that has endured for over 6,000 years, silently challenging us to comprehend the depth of their connection to their world. Perched on the desolate slopes of Mount Beggong in China's Qinghai province, a place so remote it feels like the edge of the world, a discovery was made that seems to defy the very laws of geological and historical time. Here, near the bank of a saltwater lake and the entrance to a curious cave, a collection of rusted iron pipes protrudes from the rock, running deep into the mountain and emerging at the water's edge. These are not modern relics, they are ancient, heavily oxidized, and perhaps most bafflingly, they are embedded within solid stone that dates back millions of years. Their presence in such a context presents a classic and compelling anomaly, an object that appears unmistakably manufactured, found in a setting that predates human industry by an unimaginable margin. This is the core of the Beggong pipe's riddle, a mystery that forces us to question whether we are looking at a spectacular natural formation, evidence of a lost human civilization, or something even more extraordinary. The pipes themselves vary in size, with some reports describing them as thin as a toothpick and others as wide as 16 inches in diameter. They are predominantly composed of iron oxide, but analysis has also revealed the presence of other minerals and an unusual 8% of their content that remains unidentified. Their arrangement is what most strongly suggests intelligent design. They are not randomly scattered but appear to be laid out in a purposeful, almost structural pattern. Some run horizontally across the rock face, while others plunge vertically into the earth, creating a network that hints at a complex, engineered system. This apparent orderliness is the primary fuel for the theory that these are not natural formations but the decaying remnants of an ancient, sophisticated infrastructure, perhaps part of a plumbing or hydraulic system for a long-vanished settlement, now entombed and fossilized within the mountain itself. If they are indeed artificial, the implications are staggering. Conventional archaeology places the earliest widespread use of iron smelting around 1200 BC with the Hittites, and sophisticated iron pipework would be a technology millennia ahead of that. The idea that an advanced culture capable of such metallurgical feats existed in this remote region of China tens of thousands, or even millions, of years ago would necessitate a complete rewrite of human history. Proponents of this view point to the pipe's uniform shape and seemingly welded seams as evidence of manufacturing, suggesting a technological prowess that rivals our own industrial age. This line of thinking inevitably connects to broader, more speculative narratives about lost continents like Mu or advanced prehistoric societies whose knowledge was completely erased by a global cataclysm, leaving only these enigmatic fragments behind as silent witnesses to their existence. Unsurprisingly, mainstream science offers a far more conservative, yet no less fascinating explanation. Geologists propose that the Beggong pipes are a spectacular example of a natural phenomenon known as a fulgurite, or more accurately in this case, a type of iron concretion. Over immense periods of time, mineral-rich water can seep through porous sandstone. If the conditions are right, particularly if the water has a high iron content, the iron can precipitate out and crystallize around a central nucleus, like a root or a mineral vein, gradually forming a tube-like structure as the water flows through a specific path. As the surrounding softer rock erodes away over eons, these harder, more resistant iron formations are left exposed, often in patterns that can appear deceptively artificial to the untrained eye. The varying sizes and the apparent layout could simply be the result of ancient tree root systems that have now completely fossilized, their organic material replaced by iron oxide through a process called permineralization, leaving behind perfect pipe-like stone casts. The debate between these two viewpoints, ancient technology versus natural geology, is a perfect microcosm of a larger struggle in how we interpret the past. When we encounter something that doesn't fit our established timeline, our first instinct is often to reach for a dramatic explanation, to populate the empty spaces of history with advanced civilizations or otherworldly visitors. The Beggong pipes tap directly into this desire for a more mysterious and exciting narrative. However, the scientific principle of Occam's razor, which favors the simplest explanation with the fewest assumptions, leans heavily toward the natural formation theory. The processes required for iron concretion are well documented and occur in numerous other locations around the world, even if rarely on such an impressive and perplexing scale. Ultimately, the Beggong pipes serve as a powerful reminder of the incredible and often bizarre artistry of nature. They challenge us not necessarily to rewrite history, but to deepen our appreciation for the complex and slow-moving forces that shape our planet. They stand as a testament to the fact that the natural world is capable of creating structures of such startling regularity and form that they can easily be mistaken for the work of intelligent hands. Whether a quirk of geology or a genuine archaeological paradox, their true significance lies in their ability to ignite curiosity and force us to look more closely, to question our assumptions, and to marvel at the fact that our planet still holds phenomena that can make even the most seasoned scientists pause and wonder. Beneath the crystal-clear, turquoise waters off the westernmost tip of Japan, near the remote island of Yonaguni, lies a structure so massive and so strangely geometric that it has divided the scientific community for decades. Discovered in 1986 by a local diver seeking to observe hammerhead sharks, the Yonaguni monument rises from the seafloor like a sunken citadel, a series of massive stone terraces, walls, and steps that appear to have been carved by intelligent hands. The main structure is colossal, measuring nearly 500 feet long, 130 feet wide, and rising 80 feet to a depth just 80 feet below the ocean's surface. Its most striking features are its two massive parallel monoliths, its perfectly straight 90-degree angle corners, and its tiers of stone that look eerily like a stepped pyramid or a grand ceremonial platform, a ziggurat lost to the sea. The immediate, visceral reaction upon seeing it is that this cannot be natural. It feels designed, intentional, and profoundly ancient. The debate over its origin is a classic clash between two compelling worldviews. On one side are the proponents of a man-made origin, led by the charismatic and persistent marine geologist Masaki Kimura, who has spent decades studying the site. He points to specific features that seem to defy natural explanation: a retaining wall around what appears to be a central plaza, a star-shaped platform, and a road encircling the structure. He identifies what look like carved channels, drainage ditches, and even a pool. Most convincing to him are the two round holes, each about 2 feet deep, located next to each other on a rock ledge, which he argues are clearly tool marks for placing pillars. For Kimura and his supporters, this is the work of a sophisticated prehistoric culture, a lost civilization that thrived when sea levels were hundreds of feet lower, a civilization whose entire world was drowned at the end of the last ice age. The skeptics, including many mainstream geologists, offer a powerful counter-argument rooted in the incredible forces of nature. They point out that the entire region is composed of sandstone, a sedimentary rock known for fracturing along straight lines and planes due to its layered formation. This natural process, known as bedded fracturing, can create remarkably clean, 90-degree angles and flat surfaces as the rock shears along its horizontal and vertical weaknesses. The powerful currents that sweep through the area, along with persistent seismic activity, would then act as nature's sculptors, eroding and washing away the softer material to leave behind these dramatic, angular formations. Robert Skock, a geologist who has dived at the site, acknowledges its awe-inspiring appearance but concludes that while specific minor features might have been modified by humans, the entire structure is fundamentally a natural formation, a spectacular product of tectonic shifts and ocean erosion. The dating of the site adds another layer of profound intrigue. If the monument is indeed artificial, when could it possibly have been built? The answer lies in the history of the ocean itself. During the last glacial maximum, around 20,000 years ago, global sea levels were nearly 400 feet lower than they are today. the area around Yonaguni would have been dry land, a coastal plateau or a land bridge connecting to larger land masses. As the glaciers melted between 12 and 8,000 years ago, the seas rose relentlessly, gradually swallowing this coastline. This means that if humans did carve this structure, they would have had to have done so over 10,000 years ago, a time when conventional archaeology tells us people were simple hunter-gatherers, not monumental architects. This timeline would place its construction even earlier than Göbekli Tepe, pushing the boundaries of complex human society back into the very depths of prehistory. The implications of a man-made Yonaguni are nothing short of revolutionary. It would suggest that advanced seafaring cultures existed in the Pacific during the Paleolithic era, capable of not only navigating open oceans but also undertaking massive construction projects. It would lend credence to legends of lost continents like Mu or Lemuria, not as literal sunken landmasses, but as cultural memories of a time when now submerged continental shelves were thriving centers of human activity. This theory posits that we are missing a huge chapter of human history, one that is currently hidden beneath the waves on continental shelves around the world, from the North Sea to the coasts of India. Our understanding of human migration, particularly the peopling of the Americas and the Pacific Islands, might need to be completely re-evaluated to account for these lost coastal societies. Ultimately, the Yonaguni monument stands as a powerful symbol of the mysteries that still lie hidden in the deep. It is a Rorschach test projected onto the ocean floor. What you see in its stark angles and sweeping terraces depends on what you are willing to believe about our past. Whether it is a masterpiece of natural geology or the ruins of a forgotten world, its true power is its ability to make us question. It forces us to look at a map and remember that the current coastlines are just a snapshot in time, that thousands of square miles of land that were once home to humans now lie underwater, holding secrets we are only beginning to glimpse. Every dive to its enigmatic platform is a dive not just through water, but through time itself, a search for answers in a world that was lost to the rising tides of a warming planet. In the hushed silence of a medieval monastery, a project of unimaginable scale and ambition was underway, one that would result in a book so massive it would earn the name Gigas, the giant. The Codex Gigas is a behemoth of parchment and ink, a tome that requires 2 people to lift its 165-pound weight. Its 310 pages of vellum, made from the skins of an estimated 160 donkeys, contain a complete Latin Vulgate Bible, historical works by Josephus, medical texts, a calendar, and a list of local monks. But it is the book's most infamous resident that has captured the world's imagination for centuries. A full-page, chilling portrait of the devil himself, crouching alone in a void of empty parchment, his body scaled and clawed, his tongue flicking out between sharp teeth. This single illustration, so vivid and fearsome, gave the manuscript its more popular and ominous title, The Devil's Bible. The legend that grew around its creation is as dramatic as the book itself. According to folklore, the Codex was the work of a single monk, a Benedictine scribe who had broken his monastic vows and was sentenced to be walled up alive as punishment. In a desperate plea for mercy, he promised his abbot that he would create, in a single night, a book that would contain all human knowledge and bring everlasting glory to the monastery. As midnight approached and he realized the task was impossible, he prayed not to God but to the fallen archangel Lucifer, offering his soul in exchange for completion. Satan, it is said, finished the manuscript, adding his own portrait as a signature. This tale of a diabolical pact was a perfect medieval morality play, a warning about the perils of pride and the terrifying cost of seeking forbidden knowledge. The reality, while less supernatural, is no less astonishing. Paleographic analysis, the study of the handwriting, reveals that the entire codex is indeed the work of a single, incredibly dedicated scribe. The consistency of the script, a Carolingian minuscule with some Gothic features, shows no variation that would suggest multiple authors or even a significant change in the writer's health or age. This one individual would have labored for an estimated 20 to 30 years, spending every day in the scriptorium, meticulously copying and illuminating this vast collection of texts. The notion of a single night's work is physically impossible. The act of preparing the parchment alone would have taken months. The legend, however, speaks to a profound truth about the manuscript. Its creation was such a superhuman feat of endurance that people of the time could only explain it through divine, or more accurately, infernal intervention. So why would a lone monk commit his entire adult life to such an exhaustive project? The answer lies not in a pact with the devil, but in a deep and complex devotion to God. In the medieval worldview, the act of writing was itself a form of prayer, a physical meditation on the divine word. Creating a book that contained both sacred scripture and secular knowledge was a way to glorify God's creation in its entirety. The inclusion of medical texts and historical chronicles wasn't seen as separate from the Bible. It was all part of the same universal tapestry woven by God. The Codex was likely intended as a summa, a comprehensive summary of knowledge for a major monastic center, a treasure that would attract pilgrims, scholars, and patronage. Its very existence was a statement of spiritual and intellectual power. Yet, the haunting image of the devil cannot be ignored or explained away as mere decoration. Its placement is deliberate and theologically significant. In the medieval mind, the devil was a very real and present force, the ultimate adversary in the cosmic struggle between good and evil. But his power was not autonomous. It was permitted by God as a test of faith. By including this dramatic portrait directly opposite a magnificent depiction of the heavenly city, the scribe was visually representing this eternal dichotomy. The devil is not celebrated, he is contained, imprisoned within the holy pages of the book, a defeated foe whose image serves as a stark warning to the reader. He is a part of the world's story, but not its victor. The Codex Gigas, therefore, is not a satanic Bible but a profoundly Christian one, encapsulating the entire medieval cosmos, the sacred and the profane, the celestial and the demonic, all bound together under the ultimate authority of God. It stands as a monumental testament to one individual's faith, perseverance, and the enduring human desire to capture the whole of existence, both light and shadow, within the pages of a single, incredible book. Hidden amidst the lush, green highlands of northern Laos lies a landscape that feels both serene and profoundly mysterious. Scattered across dozens of sites, from rolling meadows to forest clearings, thousands of massive stone jars lie scattered, some standing upright, others tilted at angles, as if some race of giants had abruptly ended a game and walked away. This is the Plain of Jars, a vast archaeological zone that remains one of Southeast Asia's most captivating and elusive puzzles. These jars are not delicate pottery. They are monumental containers hewn from solid rock, granite, sandstone, and limestone, each one a unique testament to an ancient craftsman's skill. The largest of them stand over 3 meters tall and weigh several tons, their sheer scale and number speaking to a society with a powerful, unified purpose that has been lost to the centuries. The most immediate question is one of creation and logistics. How did an Iron Age culture dating from around 500 BC to 500 CE, with only basic metal tools, manage to quarry, shape, and transport these behemoths? The process likely began at nearby rock outcrops, where workers would have used iron chisels and pounders to painstakingly define the shape of a jar directly from the bedrock. Once the exterior was roughed out, the incredibly difficult task of hollowing the interior began, a process of pecking and grinding that would have consumed untold hours of labor. After it was freed, the multi-ton jar then had to be moved, sometimes over several kilometers of rugged, mountainous terrain. The most plausible theory suggests the use of wooden rollers, ropes made from vines or bamboo, and the coordinated muscle of large teams of people, inching each jar slowly and carefully to its final resting place. This was not a casual undertaking. It was a monumental investment of time and effort, indicating that whatever these jars were for, it was of the utmost importance to the people who made them. This brings us to the central, enduring mystery. What was their purpose? The most widely accepted theory, supported by archaeological evidence, is that they were funerary urns. Early excavations by French archaeologist Madeleine Colony in the 1930s uncovered human remains, burial goods like beads and ceramics, and quartz stones placed around and inside the jars. This suggests a complex mortuary practice. The bodies of the deceased may have been placed inside the jars to decompose, a practice known as excarnation, with the bones later being collected for secondary burial elsewhere. Alternatively, the jars might have served as permanent receptacles for cremated remains. The clusters of jars could then be interpreted as ancient cemeteries, sacred grounds where entire communities laid their dead to rest, the stone vessels acting as eternal guardians for the spirits within. However, other compelling theories persist, adding layers of intrigue to the sites. Some researchers propose the jars were used for practical storage, holding everything from rice and water to fermented alcoholic beverages for large communal feasts. In this scenario, the jars' locations on key plateaus might mark important trade routes or seasonal meeting places for different clans. Another fascinating idea connects them to the monsoon rains. Their strategic placement could have been part of a sophisticated water collection system, with the jars serving as massive reservoirs to capture precious rainwater during the dry season. This practical function would not necessarily exclude a later ceremonial use, as objects of daily life often acquire spiritual significance over time. The true answer might be a combination of all these ideas, with the jars serving multiple roles in the social and spiritual life of a people about whom we know almost nothing. The mystery is compounded by the jar's silent context. Unlike the builders of the pyramids or Stonehenge, the creators of the Plain of Jars left behind no written records, no grand carvings on the jars themselves, and no direct descendants with oral histories that explain their purpose. We have only the jars and the few artifacts found with them. Their culture has vanished so completely that we cannot even be certain of their ethnic identity, though some scholars tentatively link them to the ancestors of modern groups in the region. This profound silence makes the sites feel even more ancient and enigmatic. We are left to piece together their story from fragments, a puzzle with most of the pieces missing. Adding a somber, modern layer to this ancient mystery is the tragic legacy of the secret war in Laos. During the Vietnam War, the region was subjected to intense bombing, and many of the jar sites are still contaminated with unexploded ordnance. This has made archaeological investigation extremely dangerous and slow, limiting our ability to fully understand and preserve these incredible monuments. The work being done today by bomb disposal teams and archaeologists is not just about solving an academic puzzle. It is an act of reclaiming history from the scars of conflict, slowly making these ancient fields safe so that their secrets can one day be fully uncovered. The jars have stood for over 2 millennia, witnessing the rise and fall of kingdoms and the horrors of modern warfare. they remain as stoic and patient as the mountains from which they were carved, holding their stories close, waiting for us to finally listen. While the Plain of Jars reveals a mystery concentrated in specific sites, our next enigma unfolds on a canvas of breathtaking scale, a network of lines so vast it dwarfs every other ancient drawing on the planet. High on the Bolivian Altiplano, near the ice-capped volcano of Sacsayhuamán, the earth itself is etched with a staggering masterpiece of precision and patience. Here, stretching across an almost inconceivable 22,000 square kilometers, an area larger than the entire nation of Israel, lies a web of thousands upon thousands of perfectly straight paths. These are the Sacsayhuamán Lines, a labyrinth of linear artistry carved not into stone, but directly into the crust of the earth, created over 3,000 years ago by cultures whose names and languages are now lost to time. Unlike the figurative Nazca Lines to the west, these are geometric, an overwhelming composition of straight lines, triangles, and quadrilaterals that form the largest known archaeological artwork in the world. The sheer logistics of their creation are enough to inspire awe and disbelief. How did a prehistoric people without theodolites, GPS, or even written language manage to plot and execute such relentlessly straight paths across such a vast and varied terrain? The lines, which are typically 1 to 3 meters wide, were not built up but scraped clean. They were created by generations of workers patiently removing the dark, oxidized surface stones and gravel to reveal the lighter, sandy soil beneath, a technique that created a stark visual contrast against the surrounding landscape. The key to their straightness likely lay in a simple yet profoundly effective surveying method: sight lines. Builders would have placed a series of stakes in the ground at regular intervals, using the human eye to align them perfectly with a distant peak like Mount Sacsayhuamán itself or another prominent horizon feature. This method of using the immutable landmarks of the natural world as fixed points allowed them to maintain their bearing for dozens of kilometers at a time, a testament to their sophisticated understanding of their environment and basic geometry. This immense effort, repeated across millennia, points to a purpose that must have been absolutely central to the culture's identity. The most compelling theory suggests these were sacred pathways, pilgrimage routes used for ceremonial processions to worship at distant shrines or sacred mountains like Sacsayhuamán, which was considered a deity. Walking these straight lines would have been a physical and spiritual journey, a way to connect communities with their sacred geography in a direct, unswerving manner. The act of walking itself could have been a form of meditation or prayer, with the path serving as a literal connection between the earthly and the divine. Another fascinating hypothesis posits an astronomical function. Certain lines may have been aligned with the rising and setting of the sun during solstices or equinoxes, or with important stars, transforming the entire plateau into a colossal calendar etched into the earth to mark the passage of time and the changing of seasons for agricultural and ritual cycles. Yet, beyond any single functional explanation, the Sacsayhuamán Lines speak to a deeper, more universal human impulse, the desire to organize and make sense of the world, to impose human order onto the chaos of nature. The lines create a gigantic grid, a way of mentally and physically mapping and claiming the vast, open space of the Altiplano. They might have served as territorial markers for different clans, or as guideways for trade and communication between scattered communities in the harsh, high-altitude environment. Their endurance is a testament to the power of collective memory and tradition. This was not a project commanded by a single king, but a sustained cultural practice, a tradition passed down through countless generations, each one adding to and maintaining the work of their ancestors. The lines are a physical manifestation of a shared belief system so powerful and so enduring that it compelled people for centuries to participate in this quiet, monumental act of landscape art. Today, the true meaning of the lines is as elusive as the thin air on the high plateau. The cultures that created them left no written records, and their oral traditions have been lost to the waves of time and conquest that followed. We are left with the lines themselves, a silent, sprawling question mark written across the Bolivian landscape. They resist easy interpretation, reminding us that ancient peoples often operated with a worldview that seamlessly blended the practical and the spiritual in ways we struggle to disentangle. To walk beside them now is to walk alongside ghosts, to feel the presence of a determined and coordinated people who looked out across the immense, open sky and felt compelled to reach out and connect, to draw straight lines towards the horizon, creating a legacy of collective purpose that remains one of the most understated and overwhelming wonders of the ancient world. Housed within the royal chapel of the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy, a single piece of linen cloth is perhaps the most intensely studied and passionately debated artifact in human history. The Shroud of Turin is a herringbone weave textile, approximately 14 feet long and 3.5 feet wide, and its surface bears the faint, sepia-toned image of a man, front and back, who suffered the brutal and specific injuries of Roman crucifixion. For millions of the faithful, this is not merely an ancient relic. It is the actual burial shroud of Jesus of Nazareth, a divine photograph of the moment of resurrection, imprinted by a burst of miraculous energy. For skeptics, it is a brilliant, albeit inexplicable, medieval forgery. Yet for scientists, it remains an absolutely baffling anomaly, a puzzle that has resisted every attempt at definitive explanation, making it a perfect storm where faith, science, and mystery collide with incredible force. The image itself is hauntingly detailed, but only when viewed as a photographic negative does its full, startling clarity emerge, a discovery made in 1898 by amateur photographer Secondo Pia. In negative, the faint stains resolve into a perfectly coherent, three-dimensional image of a bearded man with long hair, his body bearing the unmistakable wounds of the Gospel accounts. There are streams of blood from wounds on the head consistent with a crown of thorns, a large puncture in the wrist and feet, swelling on the cheeks from beatings, and a grievous wound in the side. Perhaps most intriguingly, the blood stains behave with forensic accuracy. They show a clear serum halo around the edges, a phenomenon that occurs as blood separates after death, a detail far beyond the knowledge of any medieval artist. The image, however, is something else entirely. It is a superficial discoloration only on the very topmost fibrils of the linen threads, with no penetration into the weave beneath. There are no brush strokes, no pigments, no dyes, and no outlines. It is as if the image was somehow projected onto the cloth. The scientific investigation of the shroud reached a fever pitch in the 1970s and 80s. An international team of experts known as the Shroud of Turin Research Project, or STURP, was granted 5 days of continuous, around-the-clock access to the cloth. They subjected it to every form of analysis they could without taking samples: X-ray fluorescence, infrared thermography, ultraviolet photography, and Raman spectroscopy. Their conclusion, published in peer-reviewed scientific journals, was stunning. They found no evidence of any artistic medium that could account for the image. They confirmed the presence of real human blood, identified as type AB, and reiterated that the image was not painted, printed, or stained with any known substance. They concluded that the image was, in their words, the result of some cellulose oxidation dehydration reaction that caused the structure of the fibrils to change, but they could not identify the source of the energy that caused this change. They were left with a mystery, having effectively ruled out the possibility of a forgery while stopping short of claiming a miracle. The debate seemed to be settled, at least in terms of age, in 1988. With permission from the Vatican, 3 prestigious laboratories at the University of Oxford, the University of Arizona, and the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology were allowed to perform radiocarbon dating on a single sample taken from a corner of the shroud. The results, published in the journal Nature, pointed unanimously to a date between 1260 and 1390 CE, the heart of the Middle Ages. For many, this was the final, definitive proof that the shroud was a clever medieval fake. Yet, almost immediately, questions arose about the sample. Critics argued that the tested corner was one of the most handled and contaminated parts of the cloth, potentially patched and rewoven by nuns after a fire in the 1600s that nearly destroyed it, which could have skewed the carbon dating significantly. Some researchers pointed to botanical evidence, like pollen grains found on the shroud that are unique to the Jerusalem area, and historical theories suggesting it could be the same cloth known as the image of Edessa, documented as early as the 6th century. The carbon dating, rather than closing the case, simply opened a new, furious chapter of scientific dispute. So if it is a medieval creation, how was it done? This is where the mystery deepens exponentially. No one has been able to successfully replicate the shroud's unique properties. Modern artists and scientists have tried everything from acid painting and baking a bas relief to using ultraviolet light and primitive photography, but all attempts fail to capture the 3-dimensional information encoded in the image's intensity or achieve the microscopic superficiality of the coloration. The forger would have needed an understanding of negative imaging 7 centuries before photography was invented, profound knowledge of forensic blood patterns, and a method to alter linen fibrils in a way that modern technology still cannot reproduce. The alternative, that it is genuine, presents its own set of profound questions about the mechanism that could have created such an image, a moment of energy transference that remains beyond the reach of contemporary physics. Ultimately, the Shroud of Turin transcends its physical nature. It is far more than a piece of cloth. It is a mirror. What we see in it often reflects what we already believe. For the devout, it is a tangible connection to the divine, a sacred icon that validates faith. For the scientist, it is an unsolved problem, an outlier that challenges the limits of our understanding. It exists in a rare space, a permanent question mark that refuses to be categorized. It challenges the very boundaries we erect between the empirical and the spiritual, forcing a dialogue where evidence and belief are in constant, fascinating tension. Whether a divine miracle or the world's most enigmatic work of art, its enduring power lies in its ability to make us wonder, to question, and to look for answers that continue to remain, tantalizingly, just out of reach. In the summer of 1936, a simple walk along the banks of the Red Creek near London, Texas, turned into a discovery that would ignite a firestorm of debate for decades to come. As the story goes, a couple hiking through the area noticed a curious piece of rock that had fallen from an overhanging ledge. Protruding from the broken stone was something that seemed utterly impossible: the well-preserved wooden handle of a hammer, leading to an iron hammerhead, completely encased within the ancient, hardened rock. This object, now famously known as the London Hammer, was not found in an archaeological dig or a known historical site. It was pulled directly from a concretion of Cretaceous rock, a geological formation dating back over 100 million years to the age of the dinosaurs. The immediate and shocking implication was that a clearly human-made, modern-looking tool was somehow present in a world that existed eons before humans ever walked the earth. The visual paradox of the hammer is its most compelling feature. The iron head is 6 inches long with a diameter of 1 inch and displays a craftsmanship that appears industrial. It has a slight, beveled asymmetry that suggests it was forged and shaped by a blacksmith, not cast in a factory. Even more astonishing is the state of the wooden handle. It is partially petrified, meaning the organic material has been replaced by minerals, turning it to stone, yet it retains its original shape and structure. This process of petrification typically requires a significant amount of time and specific geochemical conditions. For the skeptics, this is the first major clue that the story is not as straightforward as it seems. The hammer was not found inside a 100-million-year-old rock in the way a fossil is embedded in its original matrix. It was found within a hard, mineral concretion. Concretions are spherical or oval masses of rock that form when mineral cement precipitates and hardens around a nucleus, which can be a fossil, a pebble, or in this case, potentially a lost hammer. These formations can accumulate layers relatively quickly, in geological terms, over centuries or a few millennia, not necessarily over hundreds of millions of years. This distinction between the age of the rock formation and the age of the concretion is the crux of the scientific dismissal of the hammer as an out-of-place artifact. Geologists argue that the hammer fell or was discarded near the creek bed, perhaps in the 19th century. Over time, it became buried in sediment. The mineral-rich waters percolating through the soil then began to deposit a hard shell of limestone and other minerals around the object, cementing it into a solid nodule. The specific chemical conditions in that spot caused the wooden handle to undergo a rapid, localized petrification. When the hikers found it, the concretion had weathered out of the softer surrounding stone, making it appear as if the hammer had been trapped inside ancient bedrock. In this entirely natural explanation, the hammer is not ancient at all. It is a perfectly ordinary tool from a much more recent period that was encased by a natural concrete-like process that made it look far older than it truly is. Despite this plausible and rather mundane explanation, the London hammer has become a cornerstone of alternative history and paranormal literature. Its allure is undeniable. It perfectly fits the archetype of an out-of-place artifact, or OOP art, an object that seems to defy the established historical or scientific timeline. For those who champion theories of lost advanced civilizations, like Atlantis or Lemuria, the hammer is physical proof that intelligent beings with technological capabilities existed long before accepted history. Even more fantastically, it fuels speculation about time travel, suggesting that a modern tool was somehow accidentally transported back to a prehistoric era and became trapped in the forming rock. These theories are compelling because they tap into a deep human desire for mystery and the possibility that our understanding of the past is fundamentally wrong, that there are hidden chapters filled with wonders we have yet to discover. The enduring lesson of the London hammer is not about proving or disproving a specific theory, but about understanding how we interpret anomalies. It is a powerful case study in the conflict between extraordinary claims and the methodological rigor required to verify them. It highlights the human cognitive bias to jump to the most exciting conclusion, often overlooking simpler, more probable explanations. The hammer reminds us that the context of a discovery is just as important as the object itself. Without precise, documented excavation by trained archaeologists, the story surrounding an artifact is vulnerable to misinterpretation and embellishment. It stands as a permanent challenge to the scientific community to communicate its findings clearly and to the public to maintain a healthy skepticism, reminding us that sometimes a hammer is just a hammer, a lost tool that became the nucleus for a legendary story, encapsulating our endless fascination with the idea that the past might be far stranger than we ever imagined. High on the arid, wind-swept Bolivian Altiplano, at a breathless altitude of nearly 13,000 feet, lie the ruins of a site that feels less like a remnant of the past and more like a collection of components from a colossal, disassembled machine. This is Puma Punku, or the Door of the Puma, a complex that forms part of the larger Tiwanaku spiritual and political center. But to call it a ruin is almost a misnomer. It is not a tumble-down collection of old walls. Instead, it is a sprawling field of architectural chaos, a jigsaw puzzle shattered by some immense, unknown force, where the individual pieces themselves are so perfectly crafted that they defy logical explanation. The stones of Puma Punku are not merely carved, they are engineered with a precision, a complexity, and a geometric sophistication that seems to teleport modern machining techniques back to a time over 1,500 years ago. The most immediately baffling aspect of these stones is their sheer variety and the mind-bending intricacy of their design. The site is dominated by two distinct types of rock, a colossal red sandstone and an incredibly hard dark gray andesite, a volcanic stone rivaling granite in density. The andesite was quarried from a site over 50 miles away across Lake Titicaca, a logistical nightmare involving transporting multi-ton blocks across water and then hauling them up to this high plateau. But the real mystery begins once the stone arrived. The builders of Puma Punku didn't just shape blocks, they created a system of interlocking architectural components. The stones are covered in a complex array of precisely cut notches, grooves, and protrusions. Some feature perfect T-shaped slots, while others have intricate, recessed channels and double-level surfaces that look like they were designed to hold something in place. The most famous pieces are the H-blocks, which resemble giant stone versions of modern construction brackets. These are not decorative, they are clearly functional, designed to fit together with other stones in a way that would have created immense stability, locking the entire structure together without the need for mortar, much like the earthquake-resistant walls of the Incas, but on a level of microscopic precision. This precision is what truly separates Puma Punku from any other ancient site in the Americas. The cuts on these stones are not just straight, they are flawlessly smooth and perfectly parallel. The edges are razor-sharp and the corners are exact 90-degree angles. In many cases, the surfaces are so smooth they appear polished, as if finished with a modern power tool. The consistency of these cuts across hundreds of stones suggests the use of standardized templates and jigs, a concept indicative of mass production rather than one-off artisan craftsmanship. The complexity of the shapes, with their multiple levels and undercuts, implies the use of tools that could make precise, repetitive incisions into incredibly hard stone. The official narrative states that the Tiwanaku culture, which flourished around 500 CE, had only simple stone hammers, bronze chisels, and sand abrasives at their disposal. Yet, try as they might, modern experimenters using these replica tools have been completely unable to reproduce the fine details, the depth, or the flawless surface finish seen on the Puma Punku stones. The andesite is simply too hard for bronze tools to make any significant impact, and the idea of achieving such perfection through endless hours of sanding is for many an unsatisfying explanation. This technological conundrum leads to the most profound question of all: how was this achieved, and perhaps more importantly, why? If the goal was simply to build a stable temple complex, simple rectangular blocks would have sufficed, as they did for countless other cultures. The incredible effort invested in creating these complex, interlocking forms suggests a purpose beyond mere construction. Some researchers propose that Puma Punku was not a building in the conventional sense, but a massive, pre-fabricated kit. The stones were manufactured with such precision so that they could be flat-packed, transported, and then assembled on site by a workforce that did not necessarily need to understand stonemasonry, only how to follow the assembly instructions. This points to a highly centralized, organized society with specialized labor and an advanced understanding of logistics and engineering principles. Yet, the Tiwanaku left no written records, no hieroglyphics, and no detailed carvings showing their construction methods. We have no blueprints, no tool marks that match any known ancient tools, and no clear depiction of the completed structure. The culture itself went into a sudden decline around 1000 CE, and by the time the Incas arrived centuries later, the site was already a magnificent ruin, its secrets lost even to them. The sheer force that scattered these immense stones across the landscape is another mystery, with theories ranging from a catastrophic earthquake to a massive tidal wave from Lake Titicaca, though no single explanation is universally accepted. Pumapunku, therefore, stands as a silent and stark challenge to our linear perception of history. It forces us to confront the possibility that ancient peoples may have possessed technical knowledge and skills that were not passed down, knowledge that was lost in some cataclysm or simply abandoned. The stones do not easily fit into the standard narrative of gradual technological progress. They feel like an anomaly, a glimpse of a different path that engineering could have taken. They are a permanent invitation to keep an open mind, to continue experimenting, and to acknowledge that the full story of human innovation in the ancient world may still have missing chapters, chapters written not on parchment, but in stone, waiting patiently for us to finally learn how to read them. In the summer of 2011, a team of Swedish treasure hunters embarked on a routine expedition across the bottom of the Baltic Sea, their advanced side-scan sonar system pulsing through the dark, cold water in search of sunken shipwrecks laden with valuable cargo. What they found, however, was not a familiar shape of wood and steel, but a silhouette so bizarre and out of place that it would instantly become one of the most debated underwater discoveries of the modern era. Their sonar image revealed a massive, circular object resting on the seabed, nearly 200 feet in diameter, with a long, trailing tail extending behind it. But it was the structure on top of this disk that captured the world's imagination. A tall, distinct pillar rising from the center, giving the entire formation an uncanny resemblance to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, a giant mushroom, or perhaps a crashed spacecraft resting silently in the murky depths. Dubbed the Baltic Sea Anomaly, this sonar ghost sparked a firestorm of speculation, blurring the lines between geology, archaeology, and science fiction. The initial sonar images were compelling enough to prompt a return expedition, and what the divers and remote-operated vehicles discovered only deepened the mystery. The object itself was not just a strange shape on a screen. It possessed physical properties that defied easy explanation. The team reported bizarre electronic malfunctions as they approached the site, with their satellite phones and some camera equipment failing entirely when directly overhead, only to reactivate once they had moved a safe distance away. Samples retrieved from the object were analyzed and revealed it was not typical sea rock. It contained limonite and goethite, metals that are essentially natural forms of iron ore. Even more strangely, the structure appeared to be resting on a large, raised pillar of rock, as if it were elevated on a pedestal above the surrounding seabed. These details transformed the anomaly from a simple curiosity into a full-fledged enigma, a puzzle with pieces that seemed to point in wildly different directions. This combination of unusual evidence gave rise to a spectrum of theories, each attempting to corral the facts into a coherent narrative. The most grounded explanation, favored by many geologists, is that the anomaly is a unique glacial formation. During the last ice age, massive glaciers scraped across Scandinavia, and as they retreated, they could have deposited this large, erratic boulder. Subsequent currents and natural chemical processes, like the formation of manganese nodules, could have shaped the rock into its strange form over thousands of years. The electronic interference, while unusual, could potentially be explained by the high metallic content of the rock itself acting as a natural shield or disruptor. In this view, the anomaly is a fascinating example of pareidolia, the human tendency to see familiar shapes, like ships or saucers, in random natural formations. Other theories reach further back into history, suggesting the object could be a relic from a lost ancient civilization. Some have proposed it is the remnant of a sunken megalithic structure, perhaps a temple complex that was submerged as sea levels rose at the end of the Ice Age over 10,000 years ago. This would place its construction in a prehistoric era that challenges our current understanding of human technological development. The perfectly circular shape and the seemingly straight, 90-degree angle lines observed in some photographs fuel this idea, suggesting a level of design that feels intentional rather than random. If proven, it would be a discovery as revolutionary as Göbekli Tepe, hinting at advanced seafaring cultures whose accomplishments are now entirely underwater. The most dramatic and popular theories, of course, venture into the extraterrestrial. The object's striking similarity to classic depictions of flying saucers has led many to speculate that it is exactly that, a crashed UFO that plunged into the Baltic Sea millennia ago and has been lying there ever since. The long, drag-mark trail behind it on the sonar image is cited as evidence of a crash landing, and the reported electronic disturbances are seen as a sign of its advanced, unknown technology still emitting some form of energy. While this idea is dismissed by mainstream science, its persistence in popular culture highlights a deep public fascination with the possibility that we are not alone and that evidence of other intelligence might be hidden in the most inaccessible places on our own planet. A more recent and perhaps more plausible historical theory posits that the anomaly is a relic from the Second World War. The Baltic Sea was a notorious dumping ground for military equipment, chemical weapons, and naval mines. Some researchers have suggested the object could be the remains of a secret Nazi anti-submarine device, a large sonar station designed to detect Soviet vessels, or even a forgotten coastal fortification that was scuttled or collapsed into the sea. The metallic composition and the odd shape could be explained by its manufactured origin, and the electronic interference could be a result of degraded but still potent military technology resting on the seabed. This theory provides a 20th-century solution that, while still extraordinary, keeps the anomaly within the realm of known human history. Ultimately, the Baltic Sea anomaly remains an open case, a mystery preserved by the very environment that makes it so difficult to study. The depth, the cold, the darkness, and the financial cost of mounting a proper scientific expedition have prevented a definitive analysis. It serves as a powerful symbol for the modern age of exploration, where our technology has advanced to the point where we can find strange new things faster than we can explain them. It reminds us that our own planet still holds vast, unexplored frontiers, particularly the deep ocean, and that each new sonar sweep or dive can reveal something that challenges our categories and forces us to question what we think we know. Whether a geological oddity, a historical artifact, or something far stranger, the anomaly is a testament to the fact that the Earth still has secrets, and the desire to uncover them is a driving force that continues to propel us into the unknown. From the sunken secrets of the Baltic Sea to the soaring stone giants of Easter Island, these 23 ancient riddles stand as powerful monuments to the vast, uncharted territories of our own past. They are not merely dusty artifacts or crumbling ruins. They are vibrant, unanswered questions that pulse with the ingenuity and ambition of our ancestors. Each one, from the intricate gears of the Antikythera Mechanism to the sprawling, enigmatic lines of the Nazca Desert, challenges the comfortable, linear narrative of human progress we often take for granted. They whisper of lost knowledge, of cultures whose achievements were so profound that they seem to border on magic, and they force us to humbly admit that history is not a closed book, but a living story with countless pages still waiting to be turned. This relentless pursuit of understanding, driven by both scientific rigor and boundless imagination, is what connects us directly to those who came before. The same spark of curiosity that compelled an Inca mason to fit stones with impossible precision, or a Neolithic astronomer to chart the heavens from a windswept plain, now fuels teams of archaeologists, geologists, and historians. They employ satellite imaging, DNA analysis, and particle accelerators in a modern-day quest to decode these ancient messages. This is not just an academic exercise, it is a profound dialogue across the centuries. By seeking to understand their world, we ultimately come to a deeper understanding of our own capacity for innovation, resilience, and wonder. These mysteries remind us that the human spirit has always reached for the stars, even with tools of stone and bronze. Perhaps the greatest lesson these enigmas offer is the importance of maintaining an open and inquisitive mind. For every mystery solved, a dozen new questions emerge, each one pushing the boundaries of what we believe is possible. The journey of discovery is never-ending, and each generation brings its own unique perspective and tools to the puzzle. The stories we've explored today are not static relics. They are evolving narratives, constantly being reshaped by new evidence and fresh interpretations. They invite everyone, not just scientists, but artists, engineers, dreamers, and you, the viewer, to participate in the greatest detective story of all time, the story of us. Thank you for venturing into the unknown with us. If these glimpses into history's deepest puzzles have ignited your own curiosity, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the world's greatest mysteries. We would love to hear which of these ancient riddles captivated you the most. Was it the potential of ancient electricity in Baghdad, the celestial computer from Greece, or the sunken structure in Japan? Share your thoughts and your own theories in the comments below, and let's continue the conversation. Until next time, keep questioning, keep wondering, and never stop exploring.